With the anniversary of Kevin Conroy's passing fast approaching, I've been rewatching episodes of Batman the Animated Series. Understand something here. It's extremely rare for me to react to a celebrity's death beyond a simple, oh, that's too bad. But when I heard that Conroy had passed, I cried, and not a little bit either. I grew up watching Batman the Animated Series, and it was one of my first introductions to superheroes. So when he died, it felt like a part of my past had died with him. So in his honor, today I wanted to talk about a specific episode of the show, On Leather Wings, the series pilot. Or is it? See, I grew up watching the DVD box sets, which listed the episodes in the order they were produced, with On Leather Wings first. So you can imagine my surprise when I got older and learned that the first episodes to actually air were the first and second parts of The Cat in the Claw, Catwoman's introductory episodes. And I'll be honest, I was very disappointed when I learned about that, because while The Cat in the Claw are not bad episodes, they pale in comparison to On Leather Wings, which was not only one of the best pilots I've ever seen, but also just one of the best episodes of the show in general. So please allow me to explain why. First of all, the main duty of a pilot episode is to set up the show's main characters and lay the groundwork for what to expect going forward. Were you to watch The Cat in the Claw as the first episode, you would think that Batman's relationship with Catwoman is going to be a key part of the show going forward, when that's simply not the case. In fact, Catwoman only appears in a handful of episodes throughout the series, and her relationship with Batman goes all kinds of nowhere. When it comes to Batman, his relationships with those that he works with are far more important to establish, which is exactly what On Leather Wings does. The episode begins with the sighting of the Man-Bat over Gotham, which sets up an element of mystery to the story, which in turn sets up one of the most important things to remember about Batman. He is, first and foremost, a detective. And I'm really glad that this episode takes the time to establish that, instead of jumping right into him beating up supervillains. Next we get a shot of the Man-Bat flying over the city, and while he's never shown, we do see the reaction of the Night Guard as he robs the pharmaceutical company, which really adds to the creepy and eerie vibe of this episode, as it borrows from the classic horror advice of don't show the monster. Then, before we even meet Batman himself, we're brought into a meeting between the mayor, Commissioner Gordon, and Detective Bullock as they discuss the case and the possibility that Batman is behind the robbery and assault. This manages to set up both Gordon and Bullock really well, as Gordon is much more calm and collected, defending Batman and hinting at their friendship, while Bullock is going in guns blazing, ready to take Batman down, and setting himself up as someone who, while well-meaning, is also reckless and will occasionally play the antagonist towards Batman. The scene even manages to set up Harvey Dent as the city's district attorney and hint at his eventual fall as Two-Face. By the way, when I watched this episode as a kid, I was well aware of Harvey Dent's full name, but I didn't realize until much later that Detective Bullock's first name is also Harvey. So when Dent says the line,
"If you catch him, Harvey, I'll put him in jail for you,"
I thought he was talking to himself for the longest time, and I was super confused. The next scene takes us to Wayne Manor, and we finally meet Batman, reading Bullock's statement about him in the newspaper. Alfred teases him about it, and we can see through their interaction that they're not just employer and employee, but trusted friends and confidants. Alfred knows Batman well enough to know that he'd never hurt an innocent person, and Batman is comfortable enough to take Alfred's teasing in stride, and even cracks a smile and teases him back.
My heavens! You mean it wasn't you tossing guards out of windows last night?
I only toss butlers, Alfred.
This interaction is hugely important, as Alfred is Batman's closest and most consistent relationship throughout the show. Alfred also mentions canceling Bruce Wayne's date with someone named Bambi, which hints at Batman's alter ego as a carefree playboy, even though we don't see that just yet. But one of my favorite scenes from this episode is the next one, where Batman breaks into the previously robbed pharmaceutical company to investigate the crime scene. And that's because it so brilliantly shows us Batman's tactics. He moves in the shadows, unseen, and uses his gadgets and his wits to get past the guards without needing to commit any sort of violence against them. While he's there, he collects evidence from the scene that the police had missed, and stashes it away to analyze later. Next, Detective Bullock and his squad arrive, and Batman's forced to evade them. Gordon informs Bullock that another pharmaceutical company was robbed, and Batman is not who they're looking for. But Bullock refuses to call off his men. This also goes a long way to show us not just how stubborn Bullock is, but also that he's so convinced that Batman is a threat, he doesn't care whether they get him on false charges or not. Batman does a good job of evading the squad, but recklessness on the cops' part leads to an explosion, and Batman saves one of the squad members from it, showing us that he's not willing to leave someone behind, even if it puts his own life at risk. This brings us to the midpoint of the episode, and it's here that we switch things up a little. Batman disappears, and we get to see Bruce Wayne for the first time, as he follows up the leads he found with the Bat experts at the zoo. We get to see his friendly persona, his flirtation with women, and how he uses money to get what he wants. This scene also introduces us to the March Langstrom family, and gives us a red herring in the form of Dr. March, whose bat-obsessed mind and angry nature make him seem much more like a supervillain than his daughter and son-in-law, who are friendly. Although I want it on record that I also like bats more than people, so I never saw a problem with Dr. March. Cutting back to the Batcave, we get another of Alfred's famous quips.
I didn't realize you'd taken up listening to rock and roll, sir.
Dr. March calls and lies to Batman about the evidence he analyzed, only making him more suspicious. Batman goes to investigate further and runs back into Kirk Langstrom, who confesses to the robberies. And that's when we get the most terrifying transformation scene to ever air on television. I mean, holy crap, everything about this scene is perfect, from the music to the Man-Bat's maniacal laughter to the transformation itself. This is why horror works better in animation, people. As a kid, I had to cover my eyes watching this, but now it's literally my favorite scene in the entire series. The Man-Bat rains destruction and almost gets the better of Batman until Francine walks in, and we realize there is a little of Kirk left in the monster he's become. He flees, and Batman follows. Once the two are sighted, the police are called in on the chase, and Batman's name is cleared once and for all. He once again uses his wits to bring down the villain, and they both crash to the ground. And here's where we get another really important detail established about Batman. When the police catch up to him, instead of handing Kirk over with an explanation, Batman chooses to flee with him instead. This is actually vital, because while Batman is someone who fights on the same side as the law, he still operates outside of it. And that's something that doesn't get established nearly as well in the Cat in the Claw episodes, where Batman is much more aligned with the police when contrasted against someone like Selina Kyle. Finally, we get to the scene where Batman cures Langstrom and brings him home. And this is why the Man-Bat was such a brilliant choice of villain for a first episode. Because not only do we get to see Batman fighting what is essentially his antithesis, but also because it showcases his compassion, even towards his enemies. Kirk Langstrom is, at his core, an addict, and Batman recognizes he'd never get the help he needs behind bars. So instead, he chooses to provide that for him and allows him to start over. All in all, this is a brilliant episode through and through, and while The Cat in the Claw works fine as a standard episode of the show, it never should have been allowed to air as the pilot, as On Leather Wings establishes the characters, tone, and universe much better. But, as always, those are just my thoughts on the matter. I want to hear what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, and consider subscribing to my channel for more. Until then, stay brilliant, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.